Thank you. So thank you everyone for joining today's session. Welcome to Alchemist Book Club. We started in the year 2018 with a very humble beginning of few bunch of friends joining together to discuss about some of the books that are very interesting to each and every one. What started as a friends club later on became a book club. We started discussing various books of various genres. We found so much of interesting viewpoints of different people discussing about the same book, which gave us a lot more opportunity to mingle, discuss, and get into the deeper aspects of the book. Generally cultivated this good habit of actually reading books and getting to know more about the authors, their history, and various other genres. So we continued this, and now we are heading towards our 4th year. And so far we had a lot of authors coming over here, a lot of interesting books of various genres being discussed. And I'm happy to say today is the 49th meeting of Alchemist Book Club. And today is the 3rd meeting of this year, 2022. We have meetings on the 2nd and the final Saturdays of every month. And we have lined up the meetings for this entire year so far. And today, it's a very, very proud moment for me and everybody in the Alchemist Book Club, as we are going to discuss about something which I never discussed so far, but it's of so much important that we need to understand about the country and the soldiers and the heroes in the battle. Okay. And who else is the person whom we can invite and facilitate the session than Ramji himself, who's so passionate about this, and also, made arrangements and made contact with Major General Ian Cardozo, who is amidst us. It's a very proud moment for all of us, to take us through the session. Over to you, Ramji, and we are really looking forward to this.
Thank you, TG, and welcome all to this, what is going to be I can tell you certainly goosebumps meeting. So let's start with a brief introduction of General Cardozo. He was born in Bombay, studied at St. Xavier's High School and then St. Xavier's College in Mumbai. Graduated from National Defence Academy, then went to Indian Military Academy, Dehradun. Then he joined 5th Gorkha Rifles Frontier Force, that is 5GRFF, it's called. And he was commissioned and later commanded the 1st Battalion of the 5th Regiment of Gorkha Rifles. He also served with the 4th Battalion of 5 Gorkha Rifles and fought 2 wars alongside them, the 65 Indo-Pakistan War and the 71 Indo-Pakistan War. He was the first NDA cadet to receive both gold and silver medals. I wonder how that happens, but he will tell us shortly how that happened. At the outbreak of the Pakistan-Bangladesh War of 71, General Cardozo was attending a course at Defence Staff Services Staff College at Wellington. He was pulled out of there and deployed into the Eastern Sector Theatre of Operations. And he arrived at his battalion in time to accompany them on the Indian Army's first ever heliborne operation during the Battle of Sylhet. We'll hear more in detail about this. He was popularly named Kartoos Saab because the Gorkhas couldn't pronounce his name, so they would call him Kartoos Saab. Kartoos means cartridge in Hindi. In Sylhet, in the Battle of Sylhet, a life-changing incident happened to them. Again, he will be elaborating on that later in the thing. Military awards, he is an Ati Vishisht Seva Medal winner and a Sena Medal winner. General Cardozo is married to Priscilla Madam and has 3 children, 3 sons. He currently resides in Delhi. What a lot of people don't know about him is he regularly takes part in the dream run of the Mumbai Marathon, along with 15 to 20 war-disabled officers and soldiers. This is a 6-kilometer run of the Mumbai Marathon, and he is a regular there. So over to General Cardozo for the Q&A session. For the sake of, as this is a book review meeting, we decided that we will have the first half of this meeting, of this webinar about General Cardozo, and the second half about the book. So we are starting now on the the first part, which is a biography of the general and where he comes from and what his, we would like to hear it directly from the general. So, sir, if I may start with your permission.
Please do that.
Yes. So both gold and silver medals at NDA, how did that happen, sir?
Well, it is a very strange story in the sense that I come from Bombay.
Yes.
And I lived, my house was very close to the main road. Lots of accidents.
Uh-huh.
So my parents weren't very keen that I go cycling.
Uh-huh.
So when I reached the academy, in the academy, everything is done on cycles.
Yes.
And I knew how to cycle, but I did not know how to mount and dismount.
Okay.
So I went to a platform, mounted the cycle, and took off.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately later, there was a very sharp and steep slope, and I couldn't turn. I went down the slope, flew over the road, fell down about 12 feet.
Mm-hmm.
My cycle was completely destroyed, and I had no cycle. So for the next 2 months, I was running around the academy, from the riding school to the academy block, to the science block, to the PT field, to the swimming pool, and I was late everywhere. So every night I was on punishment. So I had to skip breakfast in order not to be late. I used to eat very little at dinner because the punishments were so severe that it's not possible to have a full meal. So I lost about 10 to 11 kgs in those 2 months. And I was late everywhere. I was very tired. I was way behind my other course mates in studies. And I was at the bottom of my course. It's a long story, so I'll cut it short.
Yes.
I decided that this was the choice of my life, and I had to make good. And I did make good. I studied very hard. I played every game to the best of my ability. I took part in extracurricular activities. And to cut a long story short, in the 5th term, from the bottom of the course, I was second in order of merit. And in the 6th final term, I was first in order of merit. And I was the first cadet in the history of the NDA to be awarded both the gold medal for being the best all-round cadet and the silver medal for being first in order of merit. So it has happened only once after that, and then a rule was passed that no cadet will get more than one medal.
Uh-huh.
So that's the story about the gold and silver medal.
That's nice. Battle of, yes, please.
No, I'm saying.
Yeah. Battle of Sylhet, Bangladesh, now Bangladesh, erstwhile East Pakistan, 1971. That was Indian Army's first heliborne operation. And 8,000 Pakistani soldiers surrendering to 384 Gorkhas. That's a remarkable story worthy of a book by itself. So we'd like to hear this remarkable story from you, sir, including what you have called famously the Night of the Kukris. So could you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, I will start with the last part first. The Night of the Kukris was the Battle of Atgram by 4th Battalion, the 5th Gorkha Rifles. We had come from Nagaland, where, since it was a counter-insurgency area, there was no artillery. So when we went into the Battle of Atgram, we had some guns, but we decided not to use them and felt that surprise was most important. And the commanding officer, a very brave and courageous officer, Lieutenant Colonel Arun Bhimrao Harolekar, decided that we would use the kukri. Night of the Kukris is a story about how the battalion decimated a company of the Punjab regiment of the Pakistan Army. And we took that objective totally by surprise, a night attack where we used the kukri with abandon. And those Pakistanis who survived went back and told their fellow soldiers, don't mess with the Gurkhas because you're liable to lose your head. So that is, in brief, the story of the Battle of Atgram. I wasn't there. I was in staff quarters. So the Night of the Kukris is the story of the Battle of Atgram. And because of our success, of the battalion's success in the Battle of Atgram, the co-commander, a very famous soldier, the best strategic and tactical commander of the Indian Army, was also from the Gurkhas of another regiment, decided that there was another objective which was becoming very tough to crack. Another battalion had attacked it and failed. And he said, send in the Gurkhas. So sometimes when you do well, you get more and more difficult tasks. So we went into the battle of Ghazipur and captured Ghazipur. But in these two battles, we suffered a lot of casualties. In officers alone, we had entered the war with 18 officers. And by this time, we had lost 3 officers killed and 4 officers wounded. So only 11 officers left, and the war had just about started. So the CO now, Colonel Harolekar, decided that he needed time to reorganize the companies and make cross-postings of officers and JCOs, etc. And he asked for time, and he was given 4 days by the brigade commander to reorganize and give the men a bit of rest, because they had no rest for a very long time. They had no hot food. And while they were resting, the co-commander apparently got information that Sylhet, which was held by a brigade, 202 Pakistan Brigade, had the brigade had moved for the defense of Dhaka, and therefore Sylhet was held only by about 200 to 300 Razakars. Razakars are soldiers who are not fully trained. So he said, send in the Gurkhas. So the brigade commander told him that the battalion is reorganized. He says, no, we have no time to waste. I want Sylhet captured before it is reinforced, and I will use helicopters to take the battalion there, and I want the battalion to move. Tell them to move immediately. So in the army, you can protest up to a point, and after that, orders are orders, and you have to do what you're told. But the CO was not convinced that 202 Brigade had left Sylhet. Why? Because General Niazi had made his fortress concept for the defense of East Pakistan, and that included a number of communication centers and important towns based on rivers and deep minefields, and Sylhet was one of them. So he said to himself and to us that how can 202 Brigade leave Sylhet, because it is better to defend Dhaka by fighting at Sylhet rather than in Dhaka itself. But as I said, orders were orders. So the CO said, he spoke to the JCOs of the men and then the officers and said that, see, we, of course, I forgot to mention that we were informed that we would be reinforced within 48 hours. So the CO said, if we accept the fact that we will be reinforced in 48 hours, then we will not take food, water, clothing. We will take more ammunition and more grenades. And the men, JCOs and officers readily agreed. But we were never reinforced. We fought for 9 days and 9 nights. When the first wave of helicopters landed at Sylhet, this is the fastest heliborne operation in military history, world military history, because we are taught in our schools of instruction that it takes about 5 to 6 days for the Army and the Air Force to make a consolidated and cohesive plan for a heliborne or a paradrop operation. And here we were told at 7:30 on the morning of 7th December that you are going in for a heliborne operation. At 9:30, a chopper came for the CO to do a recce, and by 2:30 we were moved in. And in the initial recce by the CO, there was no evidence of any military formation at Sylhet. So the CO was told, see, there's nothing there. Go ahead. But by the time the battalion landed, the first companies landed in Sylhet. The first company was Charlie Company, where the company commander had volunteered to go in first, Major Mane Malik. And when they landed at Sylhet, they were met with overwhelming opposition. Lots of fire, mortar fire, MMG fire, rifle fire. So the CO thought, my gosh, this is certainly not a group of Razakars. This is much more than that. Anyway, we had no time to think about all this, and we fought. We fought for 9 days and 9 nights with limited food, no water, limited ammunition. And one thing happened which was good for us. We were initially landed at Sylhet on the 7th and 8th of December. On the 9th of December, BBC reported that a brigade of Gurkhas has landed at Sylhet. So we decided that we will pretend that we are a brigade to confuse the enemy and convince him that we are in great strength. And therefore, we reorganized the defense of the battalion and sent 2 companies forward, Alpha and Delta companies. And but after about 2 or 3 days, one of the Pakistani patrols came very close to our defenses, and we thought they must now be knowing that we are not a brigade and we are only a battalion, and that too an understrength battalion. So if we have to fight a good fight and give the enemy a bloody nose, then we need to come back to our original defenses so that it is a more cohesive and coherent battalion defended locality. And that's what we did. But and then since we had no artillery fire to support us because we had gone well beyond artillery fire, the corps, General Sagat Singh, ensured that when the enemy was grouping in very large strengths, he used the Air Force to break up those attacks and to attack their guns. So the enemy then resorted to firing artillery guns at us only at night and in the early hours of the morning. So on the 14th of December, General Manekshaw gave his first ultimatum to the Pakistanis in East Pakistan and Pakistanis in general, that either you surrender or you accept the consequences. You have no chance. You have no chance to survive. And on the 15th of December, Charlie Company reported that a group of Pakistani soldiers waving white flags are approaching my company location. The CO told the company commander, fire a medium machine gun, burst close to them and tell them not to come close, because we did not want them to know that we were so thin on the ground. So we fired that burst and they stopped. But then 2 young captains came with white flags and said, we would like to surrender to this battalion and to the brigade commander. By this we understood and learned that yes, we have managed to deceive them that we are a brigade. So the CO sent a message back. These are the brigade commander's orders. We have no orders to accept your surrender. Please go back and continue the fight. Or you come tomorrow at the same time and same place and we will discuss the modalities of surrender. So in the meantime, we told the brigade commander, please come and accept the surrender. So the brigade commander came on the 15th of December in a helicopter and moved forward to meet the Pakistani officers. And they said to him, who has come in this helicopter? So he said, I have come. Then he said, in that case, but aren't you the brigade commander? He said, yes, I'm the brigade commander. Aren't you here? He said, no, I'm very far away. I'm 100 kilometers away. Then they said, then what is here? The brigade commander answered, it's only a battalion and an understrength battalion. So they could not believe what they were hearing, that such a large force as theirs was held by such a small force of Gurkhas. And then we got a surprise of our life when 3 brigadiers, 2 full colonels, 173 officers, 290 JCOs, and 8,000 troops surrendered to the Gurkhas. By that time, our strength had come down to 352. So that's the story of the Battle of Sylhet, in brief. But I have described this story in my latest book. I don't think you know about it. The title of the book is 1971, Stories of Grit and Glory.
Yes.
It's by Penguin and it's available on Amazon. And this story is there amongst 13 other stories.
Oh, that's a must buy, General.
Yes.
That's a must buy.
It's available on Amazon.
Amazon, yes, we will look it up.
1971, Stories of Grit and Glory.
Grit and Glory.
1971.
1971, yes.
And my name, if you mention my name, they'll know.
Yeah. You refused to get operated by a Pakistani doctor in the field hospital. This was after the surrender of Sylhet. So can you take us through this? What exactly had happened? And
yeah, actually, this story has been much exaggerated, and it takes away the focus of the Battle of Sylhet and trying to make me into some great hero. What actually happened is that there was a BSF platoon somewhere over there, and the BSF platoon commander was getting very nervous, and because after the surrender, for the first time in recorded history, the Pakistanis were allowed to keep their weapons, and there were 8,000 of them. So this platoon commander was getting a little jittery. So I said, I'll go and pacify him. The CO said, Ian, we don't know where this BSF platoon has come from, who they are, why they are there. They don't come under us. Why are you bothered about them? Let them be. So I said, sir, in case he opens fire, there'll be an international incident, so let me go. I should have listened to the CO and not gone. But I insisted and I went. And in the process, I stepped on a Pakistani mine. Normally, international regulations demand that all minefields are to be, the boundaries are to be recorded by barbed wire. And there was no barbed wire, so I walked straight into the minefield, stepped on a mine, my leg blew off. And I was in a bad way. And what I did not mention earlier is that during the battle, the enemy artillery had destroyed MI room. MI room is where we have the medical facilities. And the casualties who were inside were all blown to bits. All the medicines were blown to bits, and also the instruments. So there was nothing to cut my leg, and there was no medication, there was no morphia. So I requested the CO, sir, please get me a chopper and get me out of here to an Indian hospital. But because of the surrender, the choppers were very busy on other duties, and there was no chopper for me. And the CO then decided that the Pakistani brigade commander had heard that I had hurt myself, and he offered to give me medical assistance. So the CO said, Ian, you better go and let them attend to you. I was not very keen to be attended to by Pakistani doctors because I'd heard too much about the atrocities. I did not trust them. So I requested the CEO. I said, no, sir, please get one. He said, Ian, I have tried very hard to get you a chopper. There's no chopper available. And if you do not get immediate medical attention, you'll probably get gangrene and you will die. So I said, all right, sir, but I have two requests. So he said, what are they? So I said, sir, I do not wish to take Pakistani blood. So he said, Acha, I'll talk to this medical officer, Captain Sengupta. We'll see what can be done. And then he said, what is your next request? So I said, my next request is I want you to be there when they operate on me. I don't want them to cut off my good leg. So he said, okay. But, when you get this situation like this, my memory is a little confused. I don't remember what happened thereafter. All I remember was that I was put on a bed in a...
Yeah.
Beg your pardon?
No.
All that I remember was I was put on a bed, and after that I have no memory of what happened. And I never dared ask the CEO whether he was there, whether they was worried about my good leg. And the medical documents which accompanied me subsequently informed me that the doctor who amputated my leg was Major Muhammad Bashir, and he did a good job. And I have never been able to say thank you. And I also then realized that doctors are doctors, whether they are enemy or your own. But I don't apologize for my behavior or my attitude because it was shaped and conditioned by what I had seen and heard during the war.
Thank you, General, but you're being modest and avoiding the fact that you own some land in Bangladesh. Can you take us through that, please?
That's a joke. I try to say that I own land in Bangladesh, 1 foot by 1 foot by my 1 foot. Yes.
No, but after you stepped on the mine, what happened? I mean,
after that,
there was a little episode there.
I mentioned that. I told you what I said, what the CEO said, what I said. And that
the fact that you took your kukri and cut off your own leg, and we'd like to hear that part. That is
what people need to realize.
Yes.
Is that when the enemy artillery had destroyed our MI room, there were no instruments to cut off my leg. And the only instrument available at that time was a kukri. Nothing else. In fact, I had asked the Captain Sengupta to please go and find a knife. Even I didn't think of it at that time. I said, please go and find something to cut off my leg. And the good doctor, he went and he took some time. And then I saw my batman's kukri and I said, his name was Bulbasaur. I said, Bulbasaur, will you please cut off? Because my leg was hanging by some flesh. It was not that I hacked off my leg or I amputated my leg. I just had to cut off that small flesh which was hanging. My foot was hanging. And he said, no, sir, let the doctor come. I said, all right, give it to me, and I did it. But it has been exaggerated that, General Cardozo took his kukri and cut off his leg and amputated his leg. And that's not true. It was just I never knew that this would blow up to such an extent and make but it has, and people feel that I did a great thing. I only knew that my leg could not be saved, and anyone in my position would have done the same thing.
Thank you, General. And my next question is, you have, what is your association with the legendary Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw? Your same regiment, though he might have been way your senior,
No, General Sam Manekshaw actually belonged to the 613th Frontier Force Rifles of Pakistan. And after partition, uh, people from the Frontier Force Rifles, we are the only regiment in the Indian Army which is Frontier Force. Another two, there are two RT batteries, uh, Dera Jat and Hazara mountain batteries. Otherwise, so they transferred the Frontier Force officers to the 5th Gurkhas. And Sam was on the nominal roll of 5 Gurkha rifles, and he was moved to command 35GR. But on that day, Hari Singh, the Maharaja of J&K, decided to secede to India, and it was required that somebody go immediately to accept the succession. So Mr. Menon and Sam was sent immediately, and Sam, thereafter the 47-48 war took place, and Sam continued to be in MO branch, military operation branch. So he is on the name of the 5th Gurkha Rifles, no doubt, but he never served with any battalion.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got my Sena Medal, it was for an act of gallantry in 1959. But because of the Chinese operations and we were deep inside NIFA, I could not go to accept my Sena Medal till 1964. And at that time, Sam Manekshaw was the Army Commander, Western Command, and we both wear the same lanyard because same regiment. So he saw me and he came up to me and said, "Well done, son, well done." So I said, "Sir, any words of advice?" And he said, he thought for a bit and he said, "Do what you love," means you should choose your profession which should be closest to your heart, and love what you do, that is, be the best in whatever you do. Don't be afraid and never give up. And you know his reaction to somebody talking about fear. And he said, if anybody says he's not afraid, he's either a liar or he's a Gurkha. And so Sam has put the record straight to say that, yes, when we are in battle, we do have fears, but we overcome those fears because we are officers and we have to lead the men and set the right example. And there's no time to be afraid, and you must never give up. So this is the short association I had with Sam. And after I was wounded, he apparently he passed an order that every battle casualty will get the posting of his choice. And I asked for Bombay because I come from Bombay, but I was posted to Delhi. So when I asked as to why I'm the only person who was not been given the posting of my choice, I was told by the military secretary that the chief, Sam Manekshaw, has decided that you, that is Ian Cardozo, will come to Delhi and be part of a committee to work out the career perspectives of battle casualties. And that is my only association with Sam.
Amazing. And finally, of course, you were the first war-disabled officer to command a battalion. Normally, war-disabled officers are given a desk job. So how did you go about and succeed in changing the policy of the Indian Army? I mean, was it an uphill task?
Yeah, it was an uphill task, no doubt. Actually, most of us who serve with the Gurkhas, we are enamored by them. They're such wonderful soldiers, and I could think of no other life. I could think of no other life than being with them. So to be told that I could not go back to command of troops was a very, very disappointing situation. But while I was in hospital, a Red Cross sister had given me a book, and the book was about, the title of the book was It was about Douglas Bader, an RAF pilot who lost both his legs in an accident, not in war. And but he convinced his superiors that he could still fly. And in World War II, he shot down 21 German fighter planes and became an air ace. So I thought to myself that if he could do that, minus 2 legs, why could I not prove to the army that I was as good as anybody else with 2 legs? I thought I needed to accept the challenge, but I did not know how or what I would do to convince army headquarters that I was as good, if not better, than people with 2 legs. It's a long story, but I took part in physical proficiency tests. I climbed a hill, and the vice chief was astonished that I could climb. I used to swim. I and the vice chief was convinced that I was no less than anybody else. And then he spoke to the chief, General Reiner. And General Reiner said, send him. I was in military operations by this time. And General Reiner said, send him with me to Ladakh. So I went with him to Ladakh on the tour, and he saw me climbing and walking in Ladakh. And when he came back, he asked for my file from MS branch and said, yes, give him a battalion and other war wounded officers who are not taking shelter of their wounds, which meant that he was happy to give us an opportunity to prove ourselves, provided we didn't take shelter of our wounds, meaning we didn't want soft posting. We were prepared to be treated like anybody else. And the greatness of General Reiner and subsequently General Krishna Rao is that they didn't have to run to the politician and the bureaucrat to take a decision. They took a decision on their own and said, yes, give him a battalion. But it also needs to be known that I was not the first to command a battalion because there was no vacancy either in 4-5 or first 5. And the privilege of the first officer to command a battalion of minus a leg was given to General Oberoi, who later on became the vice chief. And subsequently, at that time, I was only keen to command a battalion. I was only keen to get back to my troops. But later on, when I was approved for a brigade, I was told you can't command a brigade because there's no precedent. And once again, the chief, General Krishna Rao, again took a decision on his own and said, if he can command a battalion, then there's no reason why he can't command a brigade, because higher standards of physical fitness are required in lower ranks. And if you can command a battalion, you can command a brigade. If there's no precedent, then create one. So this was the greatness of the chiefs, who at that time took decisions without bothering about getting permission from the politician and the bureaucrat.
Thank you, General. We'll now move on to the book that we are going to review today. This is the Param Vir Chakra, Our Heroes in Battle, by Major General Ian Cardozo. Can you all see the screen share?
Yes, Ramji.
Can see the screen share? Yeah. So we'll just quickly move on to what the Param Vir Chakra is. The Param Vir Chakra is India's highest military decoration. It's awarded for distinguished acts of valor during wartime. Now, this is the important thing. It's during wartime. And so there are only 7 instances when it has been awarded. So this translates into Wheel of the Brave. I mean, we all know what Param Vir Chakra means, so I don't want to take it any further. And the citation says that most conspicuous bravery in the presence of the enemy. That is what this award is given out for. So the medal has been awarded 21 times, out of which 14 are posthumous, and 16 are from Indo-Pakistan skirmishes and wars. So on the front, as you can see here, this is the Ashok Chakra, the Ashoka emblem. And on four sides is the Vajra. Now the Vajra is basically the weapon of Indra. These are the four chakras. On the reverse, this is the obverse. On the reverse, you find Param Vir Chakra written in Hindi and in English. So it's a very simple medal. That's what makes it so valuable. It doesn't have too many embellishments. It's a very finely designed, beautiful medal. We'll talk about the designer in the next slide. This is the purple ribbon. The ribbon basically, purple is the color of all the three services of the armed forces. Red for the army, blue for the navy, and sky blue for the air force. You put it together and you get purple. And you also have, purple is also the color of the heart. So that's in a way, a relatively unknown convention in the Indian Army is that a PVC recipient, a Param Vir Chakra recipient, if he is in full ceremonial uniform, is saluted by everybody irrespective of their rank. So if there is a Param Vir Chakra Subedar, the chief of staff salutes him. So that is the respect this medal carries, through the rest of the career of the Param Vir Chakra recipient. So we'll move on to the designer. The designer was Savitribai Khanolkar. This is another very interesting story. She was born as Eve Yvonne, and she was basically a Swiss national who fell in love with and married Captain Vikram Khanolkar, who was holidaying in Switzerland, and they fell in love. So this lady came back to India and she became a Hindu. She married Captain Khanolkar and acquired Indian citizenship. And later on went on to study Sanskrit, Indian scriptures and various things, and became very, very proficient in all things Indian. So when soon after independence, Major General Hiralal Atal was the adjutant general, and he asked her to design India's highest bravery award. So the idea of choosing her was her deep knowledge of Indian culture, Sanskrit and Vedas. So he hoped that it would be a design of the, which would actually embody Indian ethos. So he went ahead and he gave it to Savitribai. She designed not only the Param Vir Chakra, she later went on to design the Ashok Chakra, the Mahavir Chakra, the Kirti Chakra, the Veer Chakra, and the Shaurya Chakra. All gallantry awards were more or less designed by her at a later date, but the PVC was the first one that she did. And coincidentally, her eldest daughter was Kumudini Sharma, whose brother-in-law was the first recipient of the Param Vir Chakra in the battle for Srinagar in 1947 in Kashmir. Major Somnath Sharma was the first recipient of the PVC. So I've just quickly put together the various recipients based on the operations rather than on any other thing, because there are 7 operations where. So these are the 5 braves who have actually won the Param Vir Chakra in 1948 Kashmir operations. This was the battle for Srinagar and subsequently, the Pakistani irregulars who came into Kashmir and 1947-48. So these are the 5 people who won for that. Captain Gurubhajan Singh Saralia won a Param Vir Chakra in the UN operations in Congo. It was not on Indian soil. He won it in 1961 in the UN operations. In the Indian Army's glorious tradition, we have been contributing to them right from the 60s to the UN peacekeeping and various other forces. Then we come to the 1962 Sino-Indian War, where we have Major Shaitan Singh, Major Dan Singh Chapa, and Subedar Joginder Singh winning the Param Vir Chakra. And then in the 1965 war, we have Quartermaster Abdul Hamid and Lieutenant Colonel A.B. Tarapur. A.B. Tarapur was from the Tank Regiment, 17th Pune Horse. And he was, I think, the oldest recipient of the PVC Param Vir Chakra. At 41 or 42, he got that Param Vir Chakra. We'll talk about the youngest one as we go on. Then in the 1971 war, we have Second Lieutenant Arun Khetrapal of this Pune Horse. We have Major Hoshiar Singh, and we have Nayak Albert Eka, three of them winning the Param Vir Chakra. We also have in the 71 war from the Air Force, Nirmaljit Singh Shekhon, who was awarded it posthumously, 18th Squadron of the NAT, flying a NAT. In the 1971 Indo-Pak War, he was killed in the battle for Srinagar. Naik Subedar Bana Singh of the 8th Jacklai, as it's called, JNK Light Infantry, 1987, he was the one who put us in Siachen. So the Pakistanis had a Qaid post there, and he was the one who sneaked up and got the Qaid post for us. And today we hold Siachen proudly because of this gentleman. Major Parameswaran of the 8th Mahar Regiment, again in the Sri Lanka peacekeeping operations. He won the thing posthumously. And finally, of course, the televised war of Kargil, which we are all aware of. Most of these people are folklore and household legends now. We have Rifleman Sanjay Sharma, we have Grenadier Joginder Singh, Captain Vikram Batra, of course, about whom a movie has been made now, and Lieutenant Manoj Kumar Pandey, both of them posthumous, the other two still there. So we will now come back to General Cardozo. General sir?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. So this is, it was a brief PPT on the winners. So the book is in its 14th reprint, General sir, and it is a bestseller. So what was it like writing this book, and any interesting anecdotes that you can recollect during the research process that went into this book?
Yeah, ever since I was a young boy, I always wanted to write. But in the army, writing is something which is frowned upon, in the sense that it's you need to be more active than doing writing and poetry and all those sort of things. So I started writing only after I retired, and let's start my video.
Yes, please.
The host is asking to start my video. I don't know. Am I still audible?
Now you're there. You're audible too.
Okay. So now the owner of Roli Books wanted a book to be written on the Param Vir Chakra, and he approached Major General, Lieutenant General Satish Nambiar of the USI, and asked him to nominate somebody to write the book if he couldn't do it himself. So he nominated me. I was very glad I grabbed the opportunity. I did a lot of research. I went to the regiments, the battalions, the families, online, offline, and I wrote the manuscript of the book in longhand, because at that time computers had just about started. And I used to write the book till about 2 o'clock in the morning. And then my wife used to get up and then type it out, because by that time it had to be published. So it involved a lot of hard work, a lot of research, but I was determined to make this a good book, my first book. And I decided not only to describe the battle and the war and the battle and the individual's performance, but also to write about his story. So that personalized aspect of the book, I think, of the stories, made the book that much more popular. And it has gone now into 14 impressions. And I'm very happy with this book. And sometimes when I look at it, I ask myself, have I written this book? Because I think it's come out quite well. So that is what I can say about the writing of the book.
Any specific anecdotes, General, about the family members of the Param Vir Chakra awardees, or specifically anything that you remember?
Yeah, those are in the book itself.
Yes, yes.
Because I've talked about his early life. But I was also told that you cannot make this book into a marathon. It's got to have its limits. So it had to be, I couldn't give lots of stories about the families of the officers or the men. But whatever little I could, I have included in the book. And there is a story about, this is probably the only case in Indian military history where an Indian officer wrote the citation for a Pakistani officer, on the basis of which Lieutenant Colonel Muhammad Akram Raja, who attacked the 3rd Grenadiers in the Battle of Basantar, it was on his citation that he was given the decoration, the second highest decoration of the Pakistan Army. So in the Battle of Basantar, we had 3 big awards, Param Vir Chakras to 2 of our Indians, Major Ushad Singh, Second Lieutenant Arun Khetarpal, and Lieutenant Colonel Muhammad Akram Raja of the Pakistan Army.
Pakistani Army.
It was the basis of the Colonel Wade Airy, who was commanding 3 Grenadiers, that this award was given. Perhaps this is the only instance in, of course, it's the only instance in Indian military history, and perhaps the only instance in world military history, because I haven't heard of any other such award being made.
This is stuff of legends. I mean, it really shows how fair the Indian Army has been or is in appreciating bravery, whoever it may be coming from. So this
Yes,
is I have just put up the slide for our for our viewers to read it, and this is one of the most amazing pages in the book. Where you find an Indian officer making a commendation to the enemy officer, and it's a citation of amazing qualities. So thank you, General, for that.
Yeah, I would like to say,
yes.
You talked about the Indian Army and the Indian Army officers. Yes, we have the Indian Army ensures that right from the day a young officer joins the unit, that he is educated and made to understand the values of the Indian Army. And amongst those values, one of them is chivalry. And in the 71 war, Sam Manekshaw went around to all the units and told them that Indian Army is an ethical army. It does not do, its behavior and conduct in war is always ethical, above board. So please don't do anything which will let down the name of the Indian Army. So whereas in the Pakistan Army, as you all know, what happened in East Pakistan, 1 million people were massacred, women and girls were raped by marauding officers and men. And it was because of this that they lost respect for themselves. And I probably think that this is one of the causes why they lost so badly, because they didn't respect themselves or their superiors or their officers. So the Indian Army believes in ethical behavior. It believes that you should do, when you have to fight, yes, you have to fight for your country. You have to destroy the enemy, but you have to be ethical in your fighting. So chivalry is a part of the Indian Army ethos, not only after independence, but before that. We have heard a number of stories about the Rajputs and how chivalrous they were. So this is one of the qualities, the values of the Indian Army holds in high esteem. Honor is very important. And yes, you put on the screen the unknown soldier. I'll talk about the unknown soldier also. What people need to understand is that for every award that is given, there are many others who have fought equally bravely, but whose actions have not been recorded. To get an award, somebody has to be a witness to what has happened and to write the citation. But there are many whose actions have not been recorded. And therefore, all over the world, there are countries which honor what is known as the unknown soldier. The unknown soldier is a soldier whose body has been blown to bits and not found, or has done great deeds which have not been recorded. And in Britain, in Westminster Abbey, the grave of the unknown soldier lies on the floor of Westminster Abbey. And on that floor, there are the graves of kings and queens, and anybody can walk across all those graves, but you cannot walk across the grave of the unknown soldier, because every day fresh flowers are placed around the grave of the unknown soldier, and there is a sentry there with a rifle and a bayonet to ensure that the unknown soldier is given the respect and honor that is due to him. And in America, in Warminster, there is in the war cemetery, there is a 24/7 honor guard, whether it is day or night or snowing or raining, the honor guard is always there. We have the grave of the unknown soldier in Italy, in Canada, in Australia. On the 11th, at the 11th minute of the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, when the armistice was signed, they have made the grave of the unknown soldier in such a way that the light of the sun lights up the grave of the unknown soldier at that time. So worldwide, the unknown soldier is respected and honored. And I was hoping that if you read the book, Param Vir, you will see that I was hoping for a national war memorial, because we didn't have one at that time. And of course, we are lucky that the present Prime Minister has inaugurated the war memorial. So you've got the war memorial. But one part is missing, and that is to honor the unknown soldier. I was hoping that the Chhatri, which lies between India Gate and the National War Memorial, there will be a statue of the unknown soldier. However, I suppose politics takes prevalence, and they are now going to place a statue of Subhash Chandra Bose over there.
Yes, yes.
Anyway, I still hope that the government will still find a place to honor the unknown soldier, because it is he who fights for the security of India so that we can sleep in peace.
Very true, General Sir, very true. One of the, yes,
Should I read the poem?
Yeah, okay, just a couple of questions, then we'll finish with reading the poem.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Second Lieutenant Arun Khetrapal. The stuff of legends, really. All of 21 years, one of the youngest recipients of the Param Vir Chakra. Can you take us through that story and then the amazing after story?
Yes, Arun Khetrapal was a cadet from the NDA and the IMA. He did well. He was a squadron cadet captain in the NDA and a senior under officer at the IMA. He was a good sportsman. He was a good cadet. And he was full of enthusiasm when the war, he was waiting for war to break out so that he could fight for his country. And when the military special which carried his battalion towards Jammu and Kashmir, Jammu actually, Pathankot side, the train stopped at Delhi for the night and he got onto his motorbike and went home to meet his parents, and he spent the night with his parents and they had dinner together. And his mother told him, son, your father and your mother, both sides of the family, have got a huge family tree of soldiers, and they've all done well from time immemorial, from the times of Ranjit Singh. So please make sure that you do well in battle and keep up the name of our family. And he said, Mom, don't worry, that I will always make sure that our family is honored. And then he, very strange, and he took his golf, his bag of golf clubs and his winter mess kit along with him. And they said, what are you doing? You're going to war. You're not going to be playing golf. He said, no, we will win the war. And after we win the war, I'm going to play golf in Pakistan. And then we will have a dinner and I will wear my mess jacket. So this was his feeling that he would win the war and that he would be on top. And he belonged to a very famous regiment, the Pune Horse, which has got 4 Victoria Crosses and 2 Param Vir Chakras. Arun Khetrapal being one of them. And when the battle, I met the person who killed him, and he told me that the story of how this happened. And he said, of course, there was an armored brigade, and this is only an armored regiment of India, and they stopped the ingress of this armored regiment into India. But in the process, Arun Khetrapal, he had by this time shot 3 tanks, destroyed 3 tanks, or the 4th one was now engaging him, and he destroyed that tank also. But he was also hit, and his squadron commander told him, Arun, your tank is on fire, bail out. He said, no, sir, my gun is still firing, and there's 1 more tank to destroy. But they both fired, the enemy tank and Arun Khetrapal, and Arun was mortally wounded and was killed. So this is the story of the battle in which Arun Khetrapal was awarded India's highest award for courage in battle, the Param Vir Chakra. And then when I was writing the book, I went and met the family. I met his father, because his father and I had served in one corps some years earlier. And he told me, he said, Ian, there's some part of the story which nobody knows, but I will tell it to you. I said, what is it, sir? He said that for many years, this twin track diplomacy was going on between India and Pakistan, where bureaucrats and retired soldiers on both sides were going to try and bring peace to both the countries. And they asked Brigadier Khetrapal to be part of this event. But he said, no, I don't want to go to Pakistan. But sometime later, when he was 81 years old, he decided that I am now 81. How many years do I have left? Let me go to Pakistan, to my village of Sargodha, and see the house where I lived and where I was born. So he said, okay. and he was received by a brigadier, Muhammad, received by a brigadier in Lahore, and he was treated as a VIP for 3 days in Sargodha. And then he come back to India, and he was a guest of this brigadier. And this brigadier told him on the last night, he said, "Sir, I've been wanting to tell you something, but all these years, but now that you have come, I'm finding it very difficult to say what I want to say." So Brigadier Ketapal said, "So what is it? Tell me." So he said, "I killed your son." Now, this was something very difficult for Brigadier Ketapal to digest. He was the guest of this officer. But then this officer explained, and he said, "You know, your son is a great hero. He was doing what he was doing for his country, and I was doing what I was doing for my country. We were fighting for our respective countries. We both caused a lot of damage. He had destroyed 4 tanks and killed many of our soldiers and officers. And so did I. So this is unfortunate that our countries are at war again and again. But this is what happened. And this is what happens in war. And I salute you and your wife, his mother, to bring up such a brave and wonderful son, a son of not only your son, but a son of India." And then Brigadier Khetarpal went to his room and found it difficult to sleep with the thought that he is living under the roof of the man who killed his son. But he, as all of us in the army, we reconcile ourselves to situations which are not good. And he said, "Okay, what he says is right. He has paid a tribute to my son, called him a very brave officer. Of course, he awarded the Param Vir Chakra, which is the nation's recognition of his bravery. But even the enemy has recognized his bravery." And that the next day, they took a photograph of both of them in the garden of this brigadier's house. And then I said to Brigadier Khetapal, "Have you told?" He said, "What happened when you came back?" He said, "My wife asked me, how was your visit?" So I said, "It was," he said, I said, "It was good." Then I asked him, "Have you told her what happened?" He said, "No, but she is an army officer's daughter, an army officer's wife, and an army officer's mother. She will accept what has happened in the spirit of the Indian Army." So that is what happened as far as Arun Khetapal is concerned.
One of the most amazing stories in the book, General, and really goosebump time. On Arun Khetrapal, Arun Khetrapal, 21 years, Vikram Batra, 25 years old, Manoj Pandey, 24 years old, Yogendra Singh Yadav, 19 years old. These are all, they'll be called children or bachas in the civilian life. Yes, what is it about the Indian Army that makes these, these kids go do breathtakingly brave things? What is it about the Indian Army that makes them do this, that gives them the impetus?
Difficult to say because there are so many factors. But as I was saying earlier, when a young officer joins the unit, he is ingrained with the value system of the Indian Army. And that includes honor, chivalry, commitment, dedication, discipline, and there's only one word which embraces all these values, and that value is the word love. Now, you might say, what does the Indian Army know about love when they have to fight and kill? But it is on the altar of love that men and women in uniform put their lives in the line of fire and give up their lives if necessary for the security of the country. It is love of the country, love of the people of India, love of our soldiers, love of our regiment, and love of the way of life which is what the army is about. And therefore, it is love which has motivated all these people to do what they did. Are they ordinary people who did extraordinary things? Or are they extraordinary people who did extraordinary things? I don't know. The reader who reads the book will have to decide for himself as to whether they are ordinary people doing extraordinary things or they are extraordinary people doing extraordinary things. But what fires the courage is love. And this is something which motivates every soldier of the army to give up his best in battle. And what is important that everyone should know is the issue of leadership. Leadership is very important. Good leadership, particularly in battle, is very important because the officers and the men he leads into battle all know that many of them will not come back alive. And therefore, leadership has to be of a very high order. And this leadership falls on the shoulders of very young officers. And it is these officers who lead from the front. They don't say, "Tum aage jao, main piche aa raha hoon." They say, "Mere piche move, follow me." And it is this young officer who is right in the front of the battle, of the engagement. And the soldiers know that this young tiger, incidentally, I don't know whether you know, but all commanding officers, whether it's the platoon commander or the army chief, they are called tigers. This is the young tiger who leads from the front, facing the brunt of battle. And the soldier knows and follows him unhesitatingly because it is this young officer who is setting a personal example. And therefore, again, it is leadership which makes all the difference between victory and defeat. Whereas leadership in the army is of a very high order because I'll just tell you in my own battalion, the 4th Battalion, the 5th Gurkhas in 1971, we entered the war with 18 officers. But by the end of the war, 4 officers were killed and 7 officers were wounded. Only 7 officers survived with minor wounds or unscathed. So the casualty rate of the Indian Army officer is very high. And the percentage of officers who get killed and wounded in the Indian Army is very high. But it is love and leadership which makes them do what they do for the sake of security of the country.
We'll come lastly to your poem. It's a very, very moving and dedication to the unknown soldier. And I'll put the slide out on so that people can follow the. TG, can you put the slide out, the last slide, please?
So,
yeah.
I had already talked about the unknown soldier.
Yes.
And the fact that he needs to be acknowledged. And I hope that the country takes notice and does something about it. So I wrote this poem at the time I wrote this book. And it came from the heart. And I wrote this poem in just 45 minutes. So I'll read the poem to you. I am the unknown soldier, forgotten and ignored. When once the war is over and peace and quiet assured. We fought for you and country, and now that we are dead, we rest in quiet exclusion, because nothing more is said of how we did our duty, that you may sleep in peace when once the foe was vanquished and the strife of war had ceased. The country called upon us to do what needs be done, to oust the vicious enemy and ensure the war was won. Our near and dear ones blessed us and sent us full of pride to defend our country's honor, and some were newlywed brides. We went and fought your battles, most of which we won. Some never came back. All were mothers' sons. Our bodies, they do lie there, on hill and vale and plain, exposed to all the elements of snow and ice and rain. So many were so anxious, some still do wait in vain. What can you do to lessen our loved ones' grief and pain? Our last rites were not given. We died a soldier's death. Our eldest sons kept waiting. Their hopes could not be met. We went and did our duty. We do not ask for much, only a place of honor, our loved ones' hearts to touch, a place where they can think of happy days gone by, to pray on the lonesome morrow, and if need be, stand and cry. Although we have left Earth's orbit and need to rest in peace, our souls are not past caring. Our pain will never cease till you and the country's leaders create a hallowed space for a fitting war memorial on valor and honor based. So, as you see, we have since that time, the war memorial has come up.
Yes.
But the statue of the unknown soldier has yet to be honored. Unknown soldier has yet to be honored, and I hope that it will not be too long before he is fully honored someplace in India where we can honor the unknown soldier.
That was very touching, General, and an amazingly touching poem. We have now we have a few questions from the viewers, from our members, book club members. Kamatji, would you like to take that question? Your question?
Mr. Ramgopal,
yes.
Can I make a small intervention?
Certainly, please.
Yeah, what I want to tell your listeners is
yes,
that the soldier does what he does
yes,
because of the family which supports him. It is the wives and mothers who make us do what we do and support us in all that we do. And I have written a small poem, it won't take long.
Please, General.
It's called Waiting. It exemplifies and embodies what the wives and mothers do to make the army what it is. This poem underlines the tragedy of army wives who lose their life partners in war. Immediately after a war, there is some recognition of what the armed forces do for the nation. But after a while, people forget. War widows in particular are those whose sacrifice needs to be better honored and remembered. This poem tries to bring home to the reader the poignancy of that situation. I'll read the poem to you. The poem is titled Waiting. It is about an army wife who's waiting for her husband to come back from the war. She sits beside her window, looking up the village track, praying hard to God Almighty that her men will soon be back. Husbands, sons, and brothers have answered India's call. They went to fight our battles. Her family offered all. Her men fought fierce battles, and the rivers ran all red. The ground is soaked and sodden with the blood of all her dead. She then received a message that her men return no more. Her men are past recalling. They have crossed the distant shore. But she hopes there's been an error and her men will be back home so she can stop her endless waiting and not be left alone. So she sits beside a window looking up the village track for her husbands, sons, and brothers, but they won't be coming back. So, this is the tragedy of war, unfortunate but true.
Thank you, General. Mr. Kamath, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, Mr. Kamath.
Yes.
Jai Hind, sir.
Jai Hind.
I would like to ask you a question, and I'm sure you'll answer it honestly. Do you think the armed forces in India get the respect they deserve from the general public? And the second part of the question is, what should be done to improve the state of affairs?
Well, it is an honest question. I'm giving you an honest answer. And I think what I said about the poem, Waiting, in a way answers your question. And I'll just repeat what I had said. Immediately after a war, there is some recognition of what the armed forces do for the nation. But after a while, people forget. War widows in particular are those whose sacrifice needs to be better honored and remembered. So, what you say is true. It is not only in India, but worldwide, that immediately after a war, there's a lot of clamor, there's a lot of recognition, and there's a lot of outpouring of people who want to honor the army. But after a while, people forget. And the time has come now when people have forgotten. The 1971 war was fought 50 years ago. A whole generation has come up who have no understanding or memory of that war. And even those who were born before that have forgotten about that war. And it is for this reason that I wrote that book, 1971, Stories of Grit and Glory, to bring home to the people of India as to what the Army, Navy, and Air Force do for the country to ensure its security, and that so we can sleep in peace. Yes, there is a need for greater understanding of what the soldier does, greater recognition. You are absolutely right in what you say, but this is a well-known fact. Thank you for your question. I hope it brings home to the listeners that something needs to be done to recognize what the army does. And the best way that this can be done is to honor the unknown soldier. I've also been campaigning for a flower of remembrance. You know that in the West, it is the poppy, which is the flower of remembrance for the war dead of Britain, the Commonwealth countries, and some parts of America. America itself has its own flower of remembrance, so is France, so is Russia. How about India? We have a history which is older than all these countries put together. We were fighting wars thousands of years ago. Should not, therefore, we have a flower of remembrance for India's war dead? And in that matter, it is the marigold which should be Indian flower of remembrance. And I claim your indulgence once more, Mr. Ramgopal, to read a small poem on the marigold, which will answer your question, Dr. Kamath, in some way. Our marigold, the simple flower, in many ways, it meets the hour of valiant soldiers who in combat die, and to their maker skywards fly. From ancient times, this favorite bloom has commemorated womb to tomb of life and death in equal measure, and other moments we all treasure. But in time of war, this flower sheds its fragrant petals to mourn her dead. For those who fought for you and me and sacrificed their destiny. So pause a moment, all who care, and offer up in silent prayer this sacred flower for a soldier's death to remember that most precious breath. So yes, Mr. Kamath, we need to do something to make the army, its soldiers, sailors and airmen better remembered. And also the wives and mothers who are the life support of the Indian soldier.
Thank you, General. TG, you have a question? Can please go ahead.
Yes, Ramji. Thank you, thank you, General. I would like to ask you, you had, after your service, you have written books and such a wonderful, poems that are going deep into our hearts. So you must have been a poet or, writing poetry. So what kind of books and poems have you read during service, before, after, which has inspired you and came to you at a moment of needs during war, otherwise? Can you highlight us?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That's a good question. It embodies something which I would like to add because this is important for the listeners to understand that values of the Indian Army and of the country, of the nation, starts at home. So values must be inculcated in children by parents, in schools by teachers. And after that, when you become a young adult, you have to base your life and your behavior and your attitude on the values that you've been taught, the good values which symbolize Indian culture, Indian tradition, Indian ethos. So, yes, I've forgotten exactly what I was trying to say. What was the question about?
The books and the
Yeah,
poems.
so when I was young, a young boy in school, it was my father who kept a scrapbook on World War II and inculcated my interest in the Indian Army. But both my parents also inculcated values in us that we should always do what is right, irrespective of the consequences, be honorable, tell the truth, don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, respect your seniors. It is these values which are the tradition of this country. And if the parents and the teachers don't set the right example, then uh, saying and preaching without practice is meaningless. So my books are basically about the Indian armed forces, military history, stories about war, uh, poems, a book on poetry, uh, short stories. I've started a novel, and uh, writing a novel is not easy. It has taken me a long time, and I've never yet completed it. But my preference is for short stories and poems. And I'm 85 years old now. Do not know how much time I have left, but I would like just to keep writing whatever I have learned over the years and to share it with the, the Indian public for whatever it is worth.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I hope.
General sir, what kind of books do you read, sir, or did you read when you were younger? And
Well, as a young boy, we were brought up on stories about World War II, comics about World War II, and then short stories. I Even today, I particularly like Ruskin Bond, his stories. They are not only for children, but they're for adults also. And these are the books I used to read and love. And I thought one day I need to write my own stories because when we were in the NDA and later on, when we used to go, we have posts on the borders of Tibet and the borders of Pakistan. And when we used to go travel there, it took a couple of days and nights. So we used to halt at transit camps, which were something like the sarais of the Mughal roads. And after a bath and after sitting around a fire with a drink, we would listen to the old timers telling us stories about the Northwest Frontier Province, about World War One, World War Two, the Indian-Pakistan War of 1947. And we used to wonder when we have our own stories to tell. But after having fought now 3 wars and 50 years later, we have our own stories to tell. And every Indian officer has a story to tell. I wish they all write more often to bring the Indian public closer to the man in uniform.
Kamakji, you had something to add before we close the session?
Yeah, General, I'm going to ask you a slightly frivolous question.
Okay.
I hope you don't mind.
Not at all.
In fact, it's to settle a bet. You know, I studied in a school called Saint Stanislaus High School, Mumbai.
Oh, Bandra.
Yes. And a friend of mine today, I told him that everybody asked when I publicized this program. They said, "Is General Cardozo from? Is he a Stanislaite?" And I said, "From Wikipedia, it says Saint Xavier's Academy."
School, St. Xavier's School.
St. Xavier's School.
And college.
And college, exactly. A friend of mine today, he said that Lieutenant General Francis Dias told him that you were also a Stanislaite. So now I want to get it from the horse's mouth. Were you ever a student of St. Stanislaus?
No. But I was a St. Xavier's School, Bombay, and St. Xavier's College. And Francis Dias is also from St. Xavier's College.
Yes.
Now, something interesting about Francis Dias, I need to tell you that in the Indian Army, very often we are given names which have got nothing to do with our real names. Now, Lieutenant General Francis Dias in the Army is not known as Francis Dias. He's known as Dick Dias. Now, why Dick of all people? His name is Francis. Why are they calling him Dick? And the reason is when Second Lieutenant Francis Dias was moving up a hill to meet his battalion, the CO was coming down along with the battalion. They were going on an exercise. And he said, "Young man, what's your name?" So he said, "Sir, my name is Francis Dias." He said, "In the battalion, we have a Thomas, Tom, Dick, and we have a Hari Singh. So we got a Tom, we need to have a Dick. We've got Thomas and we've got Hari Singh. So we need to have a Dick to complete the Tom, Dick, and Harry." And that is how Francis Dias in the army is known as Dick Dias. So Dick Dias was Stanislaus and St. Xavier's College.
Yes.
I am St. Xavier's School and St. Xavier's College.
Okay. So I won the bet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Dick Dias, incidentally, is a very brave officer He's the Vir Chakra of the 1971 war.
Mhm.
He served together in Military Operations Directorate. He was very firm and very highly professional and a wonderful officer.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you, General.
Welcome.
General, sir, with that, we'd like to close this session. It's been an absolute pleasure to have this opportunity to be, to have this interaction with you and, to review your book and to have such a, one-to-one fireside chat, virtually a fireside chat with you. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity. TG, would you like to give the vote of thanks and close the session, please?
Thank you. It's been a
Yeah,
privilege.
it's a privilege in order to give a word of thanks, and but for what is what my question is. Is it for this time or the entire lifetime of the general who had been and seen everything and now come over and sharing your stories in such an inspiring way for the people of India to get inspired by what is happening across the borders and the wars. Thank you. We are always awestruck and have a huge respect for the Indian Army, sir. And today, we understood that even better by your interaction, as well as the beautiful poems which, word by word, line by line, took us deeper into our hearts, both the poems of Unknown Soldier and The Waiting. Thank you so much for your time and your sharing. Thank you for coming over here and honoring us by discussing about your books and the stories which could not have been told by anyone else but you.
I'd like to thank all of you, particularly Mr. Ramgopal and Srinivasan and Mr. Kamath. It has been a privilege and an honor to share my experiences with you and to be given the opportunity to speak to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramgopal. Thank you
Yes.
to you also for
Thank you.
facilitating the session. And
God bless you. God bless you.
thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.